Beyond a Number, a look at poverty in terms of freedom by Elliott, Marron, and Hayne. So what is poverty? There are many different ways that people define poverty. Some consider it to be simply economic or income deprivation, to be measured using something absolute such as a poverty threshold. A poverty threshold refers to an amount of income set by the government, and if a family unit earns less than that amount, they are considered poor. Others see it as a more complex issue that is relative to a society's existing level of economic, social, and cultural development, involving social exclusion and a person's actual freedom to live well and be well.
We believe that poverty is the deprivation of fundamental capabilities which allow for freedom to participate in society. Capabilities are various alternative combinations of beings and doings which a person can choose. In other words, capability is freedom to choose from a variety of functionings, things like food, activities, and clothing. For example, the lack of food capabilities would mean that a family can only afford to eat ramen and don't have the freedom to eat at restaurants because they do not have the capability to afford that freedom. We would consider someone to be poor if they do not have the freedom to participate in society due to a lack of financial means. We believe the best way to measure this is to build on the existing supplemental poverty measure, the SPM.
The fundamental capabilities in our definition of poverty refer to what Martha C. Nussbaum termed central capabilities. These 10 central capabilities include life, bodily health, bodily integrity or the ability to move freely and be protected from assault, imagination, emotions, practical reason, affiliation or social interaction, other species or the capacity to interact with other animals and the planet in a healthy way, play and leisure, and finally control over one's environment. These capabilities equip people to fully participate in society however they may like. As you can tell, our definition of poverty goes beyond a dollar threshold for the basic necessities to survive. Although some of these capabilities cannot necessarily be purchased with money, the amount of income still has an effect on whether one has these capabilities or not. As said by Amartya Sen, resources are important for freedom, and income is crucial in avoiding poverty.
Having an accurate method for measuring poverty is important for different reasons. Mainly, it is important in order to determine eligibility for government aid, to track progress in order to make useful policy decisions and see the effectiveness of government policies, and to see also how different countries are doing in respect to one another. We believe that poverty should be measured using the SPM along with additional categories that will attempt to measure the 10 central capabilities explained previously. But before we explain our take on the best way to measure poverty, we have to explain the current poverty measure, the official poverty measure, or the OPM.
The OPM is an absolute measure of poverty, meaning it does not determine someone is poor based on other people in that society. The OPM sets a poverty threshold, or the amount of income that determines if someone is in poverty, at 3 times the economy food plan, which according to Iceland is the lowest cost food plan prepared and priced by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The income thresholds vary based on family size. A family's income is calculated by adding wages, assets, Social Security, and any other money in their bank account. Advantages to the OPM is that we can easily measure it and see progress because it has been used for many years. Although, this measure only depends on family size and income level, which brings about many disadvantages. First of all, the OPM does not include government in-kind benefits that affect income levels such as food stamps when calculating families' income. They also do not change the OPM based on standards of living, making the thresholds outdated, or adjust for cost differences based on geographical regions. Finally, the OPM does not take into account money required to hold a job, for example, transportation costs. For these reasons, we do not believe the OPM should be used to measure poverty.
Because of these disadvantages and the inability of the OPM to measure capabilities in any way, we suggest focusing on the SPM, the Supplemental Poverty Measure. According to Short, the SPM sets a threshold based on expenditures on food, clothing, shelter, and utilities, or FCSU, with an additional amount to allow for other needs such as work-related transportation. The SPM takes 1/3 of the median amount spent on FCSU based on data collected and adds an additional 0.2% to calculate the threshold, and varies thresholds based on the household instead of the family unit, like the OPM. One of the primary benefits of the SPM is its capacity to change thresholds based on geographical location because of housing cost differences. The acknowledgement of in-kind benefits is another valuable component of the SPM. In-kind benefits such as SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, are necessary for many people to fulfill their job requirements, yet not taken into account by the OPM.
Since the 10 central capabilities are difficult to measure with arithmetical or logistical data, they must be converted into a proxy. A proxy is something that is put in place of something that is immeasurable. In order to do so, we believe that poverty should be measured with a similar system to the Human Development Index along with the SPM. The HDI allows for an evaluation of the central capabilities by measuring life expectancy, projected years of education, and gross national income. Although as of now, the HDI is used to compare between countries as a whole, we suggest incorporating parts of the HDI into the SPM in order to measure specifically poverty in the United States based on the capabilities approach and not just basic needs.
Our suggested approach to defining and measuring poverty is quasi-relative, meaning we believe that the definition of poverty depends on both social surroundings and financial factors. Therefore, implementing a form of the SPM with additional measures of capabilities rather than the OPM allows for a quasi-relative interpretation. Some factors of the SPM that are beneficial to our explanation of poverty that the OPM lacks are geographical factors being considered in the inclusion of all lifestyles, regardless of marital or familial relation. If we were to restrict the evaluation of poverty to a rigid form of data collection that never alters with society, then the inaccuracies would be plentiful. Using a semi-relative approach achieves the ability to view poverty based on other people within a specified culture or community, while also considering key factors such as FCSU. The SPM makes up for issues in the OPM, but because it is based on basic needs, it does not measure capabilities. We suggest extending the SPM to allow measuring capabilities by mixing aspects of the HDI into the SPM. By doing this, poverty as defined as lacking the freedom to participate in society will be most accurately measured.